Hello, 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 Facebook friends, family, everywhere. Good evening. It's Monday, 6 p.m. here. Welcome to The Voice Live with Sandy. Hardly has a voice today. So, what is The Voice? The Voice is a live Facebook discussion that brings awareness and gives a voice to survivors of domestic violence and other traumatic events. Not only domestic violence, people who have had traumatic experiences or illnesses or just need someone to talk to. It provides viewers with a direct view into the minds of survivors or people who are suffering from traumatic experiences. On The Voice, we discuss many other topics as well. Our viewers come from all over the world: Canada, US, Trinidad, Guyana, Germany, Australia, India, England. So today we will be delving into the unshakable confidence, the fear factor that stops us from getting into getting into action with our special guest, Jacque Opie. And I'm sorry that I can't talk today. So Jackie's all the way from Australia. Welcome, Jacque. And why don't you tell us
Thank you, Sandy.
yourself? Yeah, welcome. Sorry, I have a good voice today.
It's definitely a sexy voice though, Sandy. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity. And I really want to acknowledge, the people who are struggling and who have experienced trauma. And I grew up in a very abusive household, and so I understand it at a fundamental level, what abuse and trauma does to the nervous system. I understand that we're never done and fixed. There's always another layer to uncover. And I also acknowledge that I'm by no means a counselor. And so if anything that comes up today does trigger any of your listeners, Sandy, please seek the normal advice that you would. This is not counseling. This is more from my own lived practical experience.
Yes, definitely. And I see that as well. I'm not a coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm a coach, and I don't do counseling. I actually did have something come up when I started The Voice, and I had someone ask if I was counseling anyone, or I was, providing any kind of therapy, and definitely not. Because we as coaches, I am a qualified health and life coach, but yes. I am not a counselor. And so I posted it a couple of times, and maybe I'll post it after this session as well, so people can know the difference between what a coach does and what a counselor does. And I'm not by no means a counselor at all. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and if you can, give us a little bit of a background on your thoughts on it. And if we have viewers who have questions, we would like to also. So I'll be checking my phone as well, and Rai, my VA, is on as well. She'll be trying, keeping up with any questions that any of the viewers have. So my first question is, what are some of the fear factors that holds us back from taking action, and how do we recognize them? Because I know that I had a lot of fear changing careers. I had a lot of fears changing a lot of things, but one of the most, my biggest fear was changing careers and getting into coaching. So from your perspective, what holds us back from taking that action?
I think, Sandy, that's such a great analogy, because change is really the fundamental part that brings up fear for us. And if I think about, even in my own life, the times when I've either changed a career, or like you went from working in a corporate world into the coaching world, it does bring up all that stuff for us. And it's not always a bad thing. Like, fear can be such a great ally when we embrace it, but also recognize it for what it is. We know that fear, some people say that it's, fear is something that's dressed up to really keep us safe and to keep us inside of our comfort zone. So some of the real things that have come up for me dealing with fear, and just a lot of the research and the work that I've done is around positive psychology. So the studies that I've done personally looks at what are the challenges that come up for us as human beings, and how do we approach that in a way that's really positive rather than knocking ourselves down and thinking everything is negative. So I use fear in my own life and for change as a really positive tool that helps me identify where I might be holding myself back. And with the work that I've done with mostly women, what I know is that there's a couple of areas in fear that come up where we impose things on ourselves, like imposter syndrome or self-sabotage. So the key ones that I really wanted to share with you today is things that I feel are really very much inside of our control. And I want to say this in the kindest possible way, but sometimes the fear factor gets in the way because we don't actually really know what we want for ourselves. We don't have a clear vision on where we're going and where we're heading, because everything seems so tumultuous and there's so much going on for us. So we go, oh my gosh, what's that rudder? What's that one thing that you're working towards, that no matter what happens, you just keep pushing forward to that one thing? And that's where the unshakable confidence comes from. It's not to say that we don't feel shook by anything. It's the unshakable confidence, is that knowing what you're going for and to keep our eye on the prize. That's a really big one for me. And the next one is not knowing ourselves. So we don't know what we want and we don't know who we are. And that can be from a whole lot of different things that have happened in our lives. Like if you've been in a traumatic experience, we lose confidence in ourselves, not just in what we're aiming for. So we look at it and we go, well, am I good enough? Or what are my actual skills? Like, what am I good at? Especially if we've been in an environment where we're knocked down all the time. People are telling us we're not good enough. And, you know, abuse comes in so many different forms, as you know, Sandy. So those are my two key ones. And I know that for you, you'd have some of your own personal experiences around those as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And well, my recent experience with fear was, so changing my career was the biggest fear that I had lately. And the reason why I was so fearful, and I was glad that I was able to recognize why I was fearful and how I can overcome that. And I was fearful of changing careers because I had always been a single mom, and I had always been able to take care of my family. Like that was my responsibility financially. So financially, I'm always scared of making changes in my financial life because of my past. And even though that I'm married and I'm comfortable financially, it's always that fear that I have behind my head that I'm thinking, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Like that's my biggest fear, is financials, because that was my biggest issue when I was taking care of my children and I was single. And going into debt is a big issue for me. And I still have that behind my head. Like even like buying a new car, I've already paid off for my car. Why am I going into debt to buy a new car? I'm comfortable with my old car. And so I those are fears that I recognize. So I work, I work towards taking actions and taking accountability for my fears, Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so relevant, in terms of where we sit. We're often in our comfort zone. So we've expanded to a certain extent. We've made some progress. And then there's that next step that takes us out of that. And often the fear of failure or success will hold us inside of that comfort zone, So for you, Sandy, being the breadwinner for your family, that fear of failure is like, oh my God, what if I do this and it doesn't work out? What am I going to do? And that really does tend to hold us back. And when you break it down a little bit more than fear of failure or fear of success, part of that is that fear of the judgment that we get as well. So failure is not such a big issue. It's what are other people going to say?
Yes.
What will my family think? What will my peers think? And this is a huge one for us, especially because when we look at it, tribally, we are meant to be part of a community, because when we're outside of that community, when you go back to Neanderthal days, we were unsafe.
Yeah.
So we always want the safety of the herd. And
Yeah.
that is sometimes what stops us stepping outside of that comfort zone. So when we can confidently move forward going, you know what, I may fail, but what is the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Sandy, but I've done lots of things and failed miserably at some things. But what's the worst thing that has happened to me? It's really looking at it realistically. And the brain is not really good at looking at things realistically. The brain is really good at catastrophizing.
Yeah. Yes, I know that for sure. For me, that's how my brain works, and allowing myself to accept the changes is, the brain's like brain, like we call it the critter brain in coaching. I'm sure you know this. The critter brain does not like change, right? So it's always telling you, no, don't do that, because that's our critter brain. And if we allow our critter brain to take control, we won't make changes, right?
Absolutely. And it's the self-sabotage side of things as well. Like, this was a big one for me in certain times in my life where, it's not just when we, like, for me personally, like, there's been times when I've gone ahead and I've jumped into something and I've been super successful at it and I'm going really well, and then I'll do something that just messes the whole thing up. And a big one for me around that has been alcohol in my life. So there's times when I've gone, everything's going really, really well, and alcohol will come in and I'll be like, oh, I don't drink because I'm miserable. I drink to celebrate, which is not a great thing for me, because it unravels all the hard work that I do, and I end up doing something that completely sabotages my success. And then I'm back at the beginning starting, and it's worse. I'm worse off, because not only have I sabotaged myself, but my confidence each time I do one of those self-sabotage is eaten away. So it's like another little thing that picks away at confidence. So for me, one of the fear factors that I think we need to be really mindful is of, when are those moments when we're in flow and we're working towards something that we really want and really love, and then we do something crazy that just puts it all at risk. That in itself is a way of the reptilian brain, the critter brain, keeping us safe. Because like, oh, you're doing too well now, you're going too far. What if you succeed? Oh my gosh, let me do something that brings you down.
Yeah.
And understanding and
I get that totally. And I got that when I was writing my book, and I was self-sabotaging myself. My first book was, fearful of what people are going to say. Like you said, what are people going to think of my family? What are people going to, they're going to find out all my secrets. They're going to find out all that happened to me. And so that fear took over, and I kept holding off writing my book because of that, because of the fear of what people are going to think. Yeah,
and it's amazing how it can stop us for such a long time. And I do have some strategies on, how to move through some of those fears. But the other things I wanted to touch on is just sometimes when we're looking at confidence and we're moving forward in our life, the other thing that we do is look back and we go, but I failed at this before, so what if I fail again? And we use those past experiences to kind of hold us where we are. And it, like I was saying before, Sandy, eats away at those confidence levels. And the last one that I want to share about the fear factors that we get caught in is our environment. Environment is stronger than will. This is something, I didn't make that up. I've heard it from many different mentors. Environment is stronger than will. So all these amazing things that we want to do, these goals that we set for ourselves, the vision that we hold for ourselves, if we are in an environment that continuously pulls us back to where we were, it's very hard to continue to use willpower to try and push through all of that. So for example, this is one of my favorite examples because it's so visual. If I want to lose weight and I go shopping and I dump a whole lot of food in my fridge that's really bad for me and is not going to serve me in weight loss, that's my environment. So every time I go to the fridge, I see food that's going to tempt me, versus, right, this time I'm doing it really well. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to buy the best quality food that I can, put that in my fridge. Well, then I reduce the options of bad food that I can eat when I go to the fridge. So if we look at that across everything in our lives is an environment. Our relationships are an environment. Our house, our car, our jobs, our schools that our kids go to, those are all environments. And when we can clean up the environments that we're in, it makes it so much easier for us to step forward and to go for the things that we really want to. So clean up the mess is a big part of that.
Like
Not just the mess in your physical space, but in your mental space as well.
Yeah, clearing the clutter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that. So
good.
I know I will. So what are some of your personal experiences, and where have you struggled with allowing fear to take over, and how did you overcome that?
For me, a big part of that has been the same for you, Sandy, moving from corporate into my own business. And I've been in and out of my business so many times because I get in and I'm like, this is great. I've got a wonderful message that I want to share with people. And then the safety of the corporate world pulls me back in. And it's like, I've got that regular income coming in, everything's safe. I get the accolades because I'm good at what I do. And it feels really good and easy and comfortable. And then I have this nagging in my mind going, but you really do have a strong, powerful message that you want to share with people. So I'm in and I'm out. I'm in and I'm out. And it really, every time I jump out of it and back in, what I recognize is that it eats away at my confidence just a little bit more, just a little bit more. That has been my personal, shall I say, nemesis in a way, that one thing that I keep going back with. And running events for me is so powerful because it keeps me in that environment of working on myself and working on what I can do to help other people. So while I'm doing that, I'm in it, I'm researching it, I'm studying it, I'm living it. But when I step away from that environment, I'm back into what I've always done before. That's been the biggest challenge for me. And the way that I move through it is through environments.
Yeah, I see so much of what you're saying in me as well, because I completely cut myself off of the corporate world, saying I'm going to become a coach, and I'm going to keep going back to it like you. So now I'm doing coaching 2 days a week, and I'm doing my regular job 3 days a week. But when I'm doing my regular job, I'm saying to myself, but I'm so good at what I do at coaching, but I'm also good in the corporate world. And I keep it's clashing with each other all the time. But I am working on that. I am working on, getting there where I'm fully going to be just coaching. But it's the safety net. And it isn't that people don't know what it takes to achieve their goals and their success. It's that most people aren't willing to do it, like me, and what it takes to achieve that. They never want to overcome that fear to get started. And even when they get started, they, like you and I, they don't sustain the effort, right?
It's exactly right. And even that in itself, because, sometimes we think, oh, I'm lazy or I'm unmotivated, all of that. I believe that people are not inherently lazy. I believe that the reason we don't get into action or continue to do things is because we are procrastinating. And that procrastination is that the brain going, oh, it's not safe. So then we think, oh, I'll rather do the housework. I'd rather go and get a job. I'd rather look after the kids, and all those things are really important, but it's the prioritization, and the self-sabotage for me sets in when I know that I'm doing the other things, whereas I should be really focusing on what's important to me.
Yeah.
To that one goal, that one vision that I have for myself.
Yeah. And it is, you have to, sustain the effort. Like we've made the effort, going through all this training, going through all this courses, paying for it as well. And then we bail out as soon as it gets uncomfortable or it gets painful. It's a natural thing. That's how the credit brain works. Thinking consistency is what we need to do,
Exactly.
Despite the uncertain fear, right?
Yeah, do it anyway.
Yeah. So the other question that I had for you was, I know that what are fears that leads us into feeling like the factors that leads us into feeling more confident? Because we want to build that confidence, right? Yeah,
we really do. And I think that for me, Sandy, it's about having a process that you can follow, because when I go into those moments where I'm dropping down, where I'm sabotaging myself, if I don't have a process and a system to step myself out of that, I get stuck in this cycle and I just go round and round and round. And so what I've created for myself is a little diagram, and I'll send you a visual of this if you want to pop it on onto the live afterwards. So this is what I'm going to share is not linear. It goes like this because it's never in a straight line. I don't think a lot of things are. Don't do this to get that. It just keeps going in a cycle to get better and better at what we're doing. So the first part of what I believe leads to confidence is our circle. And by that, what I mean is the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. So if you have a great goal or a vision for yourself and you share that with a group of people around you and they're all going, that won't work, or that sounds awful, or you're going to fail, or what if this happens? Sometimes that's our family, and that's okay. I think being mindful about who we share our vision with is really important, and having the right people around you to share with. So especially if you've been through trauma, like this could be also making sure that you have the right psychologists, counselors, support workers around you that are going to help you set yourself up for success. Because what we want to do is build on a solid foundation. If the foundation is rocky, like we haven't dealt with our trauma, or we don't have strategies or people in place to help us through that, then we are building it on shaky ground. And this is why I call it unshakable confidence. This base has to be solid. So that's my first part of the cycle, is your circle, people around you. The second one is clarity. This is knowing what it is that you are working towards, and knowing yourself. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where are the points in the process where you're likely to fall over? And what is your system for lifting you up in that? And then what are your strengths? Like, what are you going to do in those times of need? What resources can you draw on emotionally and spiritually, physically from yourself that's going to keep you working through? So know yourself. So this is clarity. Know yourself and know what it is that you're really shooting towards. And then the third one is competence. So this is where, let's say, for example, I want to write a book and I decide, right, that's it. I'm going to write a book and I'm the worst writer ever. It's not, I don't have to be good at everything. I don't have to be good at writing or editing or doing the graphics for it, but I need to find the people who can fit into that is really going to help me. And Sandy, you know this from writing your own book as well. Whatever task it is, we've got to get competent at the things that are really important. So if I want to become a gymnast and I put that on my vision board and I haven't even been in the gym before, or I haven't done a cartwheel ever before, of course I'm going to be lacking confidence in that because I've never done it before. So it's the work and the training that leads up to you becoming confident, is being competent at what you're doing as well. Mm-hmm. So part of that is having the confidence to fail at what you're doing as well, and just keep failing forward, not backwards.
Yeah, I know that. That's amazing. I need you to send that to me.
I will, absolutely. And then the next one is courage. So I know some people who are so talented at what they do. They have all the competence in the world, but the part that's missing is the courage that it takes to actually go out and do that. So in the face of your fears, still getting up and doing it despite how you're feeling, and not waiting until you feel comfortable, that part. So courage comes before confidence. You don't be confident and then gain courage. You have to have the courage and competence to then move into confidence. And then the last one, Sandy, is, you've already mentioned this, is the consistency. So to turn up and keep doing it regardless of what's going on. And once you're clear on what you want, and you're competent, keep taking the steps forward and never giving up, and grow and learn from your mistakes and adjust with them so that you can keep going forward. So those were the four. So the circle, clarity, competence, courage, and consistency. I'm sorry, 5. I struggled to count.
Well, that is so, it is amazing, because taking consistent action despite our uncertain fears and our uncomfortableness, is what sets the winners apart from everyone else. So we all have the knowledge, like you say. We all have the knowledge. We might not have the clarity, but we have the knowledge. And if that knowledge is so obvious that it seems like common sense, then that's why it doesn't become common sense. It comes up practice, right? And
absolutely.
So why isn't everybody doing this?
It's such a good question. I mean, when you listen to people like Brené Brown, who, you know, some of her material and what she writes around confidence is just so, so powerful. And we have a lifetime of, you know, either putting ourselves down or other people doing it for us, and just breaking down our confidences in small things and in the big things as well. So it takes time. And I believe that there are so many amazing tools out there that help us along this journey, Sandy. Like one of the tools that I love using, when I said the first part is that clarity and knowing ourselves and what our strengths and weaknesses are, there's actually a free tool that people can use. And it's called 𝗂𝗂 character. It's values in action. And what it does is, through a series of questions, it has 24 values and it ranks them from highest to lowest for you. And then on that, you can look at what your highest values are, and go, oh my gosh, it says values, but it's more strengths. And go, oh my gosh, those are my top 5 strengths. How am I going to use those top 5 strengths to help me get over the hurdles that are coming when you're working towards what you love? And then how I love to use it is I look at the bottom 5 as well and go, these are the ones that I'm really going to struggle with. Like one of my bottom 5 is on attention to detail. In some parts of my business and what I do, it requires a high level of attention to detail. That's the stuff that I have to outsource, because if I don't and I get caught up in it, I get bored or I sabotage myself. So it's looking at it from a holistic point. What am I good at? What am I not great at? And the other one that I'd love to share with your audience is a blog that I've just written called Stop Second Guessing Yourself. And the blog is really, it's about connecting into our intuition and really feeling into coming back to trusting ourselves, and not just looking at the outside world going, oh, what should I be doing now? It's coming back internally and going, what in this very moment do I need right now? What's the next best step for me to take? And trusting that. So there's processes and systems we can look at externally, but then what if the resources we've got internally? And intuition is a big one that I believe women especially have stopped trusting over the years, because we've trusted it before and sometimes it's led us down shady roads. So yeah, I think that would be a good read for your listeners as well.
Definitely, I would love to read that, because you know, one of the things that I coach on is taking accountability and also taking the required actions for those accountability. So that would be something that I think my viewers would definitely be interested in.
Awesome. Well, I'll send you the links for that, Sandy, for both of those.
Yeah, for sure. I know that people, you know, they're able to turn around a failed plan like me, or a failed habit, because I was a big procrastinator, and I guess it's not only from being fearful of following or trusting my intuition, because it had failed me so many times. Once people know and aware of what they like, their clarity, I think that, and like you said, as women, we have great intuition. I call it the gut wisdom.
Yes.
Right? Follow your gut wisdom. And I find for me, I try to tap into that every time I'm in this situation where I need to make a decision, or I need to do something that, you know, that I'm not 100% sure of. I tap into my gut wisdom. Yeah.
It's so powerful, Sandy. It really is. And I think that's the part that's kind of missing in a lot of the noise that's out there. It's, especially if we're on Facebook and social media, and there's everybody saying, you know, follow me for this and follow me for that. And I think that's great. I also think that we lose a sense of self in that journey. And if we can do all those other external things but keep true to ourselves, we're less likely to end up following a path that is not meant for us. Just because a door opens in front of us, it does not mean that that's the door that we need to step through. And doing it from a place of true knowing and understanding before we step through it is really important.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, especially with women who have been abused or who had had violent relationships, we sometimes step into those doors or those paths because we have no choice. right? It was something like, for me, I started doing property management, and I did condo property management because it was the path that opened up for me when I had quit a very great job in the federal government, so that I can get, I was able to get a payout. And so I started working. I was working for Bell Canada, which is our telecommunications company here in Canada. And at the age of 24, I was a manager. So by the time I took the package, I was able to get a good buyout to be able to buy a house and move on as a single mom with 4 kids. But then I took a path in my career that opened up for me, but I was never happy. I did a great job at it, but I was not happy, and I found my happy now. So sometimes we do go into this path, and that we know that it's not our path, but we have to take it for necessity. Yeah. And then my message is follow your gut wisdom.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting though, because sometimes we step through that door and we think, oh, I'm not meant to be here. And then like years later, you'll look back and go, oh my goodness, now I know why I stepped through that door.
Yeah.
But if we do it knowing, and I think this is the thing, we've got to do it knowingly. You said, Sandy, you knew that it wasn't the right place for you to be at the time, or it didn't feel like it was exactly where you needed to be. But there was probably the door that you needed to step through at that time to get you what you wanted, which was security for your family to be able to get a house. And so we make those sacrifices and compromises along the way. Exactly. On doing it. But as long as we're doing it consciously here and in the heart, then.
Yeah. So my heart told me that, you're not going to be happy there, but you have to do it. My head told me, do it. You need to do it. Yeah. So I think it was great talking to you. You're an awesome inspiration, and I really look forward to getting you back here again on The Voice, so that we can talk some more about these fear factors and how to get over it. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you to my viewers for being online. I haven't looked at any of the questions, but I'll go back and answer. If you had any questions or you had any thoughts that you want to share, I'll go back and highlight them and answer them. And Jackie, if you can go and do the same, that would be great. And don't forget to send us those links in the blog as well.
I'll do it right now. Sandy, thank you.
I wish I had a better voice to speak today.
I think it's been perfect. And thank you so much for having me on The Voice, Sandy. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you again. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Take care. Bye.